Hi, this is Arnav from the Towers marketing team. If this is your first time watching one of our videos, we help marketers increase their conversion rate by 2 to 3x using conversational landing pages. And in this video series, we actually show you guys exactly how we create those conversational landing pages by recording the entire creation process. So to begin with, this week we are going to be taking a look at the travel industry. And I did a quick Google search for travel to Europe. Let me get my face out of the way. And as expected, we got 4 ads in the first 4 links. I clicked on the 4th link and I found this landing page on the other side. And I really like this landing page because it typifies a problem that is pretty common in the travel space. There's a sort of paradox within the travel space between the services being offered and the lead capture method that marketers use to capture leads. So on the one hand, companies are offering custom tailored travel to places like Europe, which is seen by a lot of people as a luxury good. It's seen as a unique experience which they feel like no one else has access to. And on the other hand, they are capturing leads through a ugly looking form that you'd be more accustomed to seeing in a DMV or in an auto insurance application process. So what we're going to try to do in our conversational landing page is we're going to try to fix this sort of paradox that exists within travel marketing by making the lead generation process a lot more engaging. So with that, let's switch over to the actual builder and start creating our conversational landing page. The first thing that we like to do always is to build a hook. And the hook is the first 3 messages in any conversational flow. These are the first 3 things that your prospect will see as soon as they land on your page. So it's absolutely important that you phrase this right. And we figured out a pretty good anatomy for doing this. And the best template that you can use is the first fold of your traditional landing page. So if I go to the traditional landing page over here, in the first fold, you can see there are 3 key elements to it. The key elements are, first of all, the branding in the top left. This is something we take for granted in most landing pages because it exists on every single landing page. But when you land on a page without any branding, without a logo in the top, it looks very generic. And when landing pages look generic, they can be perceived as being spammy. And when they're perceived as being spammy, people drop. And that's an outcome you don't want, especially when you're paying for Google Ads. The second element of this first fold that is worth noting is the heading and the subheading. This is, again, something that's there on a lot of landing pages. And we found that conveying your value proposition through these headings and subheadings is a good way of capturing user attention because it tells them that they're in the right place and that they're going to find what they were looking for in their initial Google search. The third element of the first fold, which is worth considering when building a conversational landing pages, is the CTA. So once you've established your legitimacy, once you've captured their attention by telling them that you're offering them what they're looking for, you need to get them to fill out a lead capture, or you need to get them to complete a lead generation process. And for that, you have the CTA. In this case, they just have a long form peeking out. They have to scroll down to see the rest of, and they have this button in the top right, as well as this number in the top right. We are going to follow the same basic structure in our conversational landing page. So the first message is always a welcome message. So I'm going to say welcome to destination Europe and beyond. This welcome message serves the exact same purpose as the logo in the top of the traditional landing page, and we actually like to include a logo in these messages as well, in these welcome messages, because nothing builds legitimacy, nothing builds a brand like a logo. So I'm going to paste that logo over there. The second message we always like to include is the value proposition message. So this again follows on from the heading and the subheading, and the purpose it serves again is to capture user attention by presenting the value proposition. A good source of inspiration when you're phrasing these messages is to, again, just look at these headings. So in this case, I really like the second message. All of our specialists have first-hand travel experience to Europe, allowing us to provide you personal experiences, knowledge, and passion for European travel that you won't find anywhere else. I really like this sentence, so I'm going to go ahead and use it. A little long for my liking. I usually like to keep my messages at the length of a short tweet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this first clause and just make it we provide. So we provide you personal experiences, knowledge, and a passion for European travel that you won't find anywhere else. Let's make you won't find, or actually, let's make personal experiences, knowledge, and a passion for European travel. We can emphasize that by using the bold function. And finally, we want to make an ask of them. So essentially the CTA. In this case, we're offering them an itinerary. You fill out these preferences, you submit it, and the travel agent makes a package for you or matches you with a package that fits your preferences. So in this case, we're going to convey that to them. We will say something like, if you answer a few questions, we can create a custom travel plan just for you. I'm going to make custom travel plan bold to emphasize it. And now we can give them a user input. Now, a couple of points to note about this third message. You want to make it as uncontroversial as possible. So I could have very easily started the lead generation process and asked them for their name at this point. But we found that when you ask prospects for too much too soon, so if you ask them for details as soon as they land on a page, they're not willing to do so. So you need to get them to answer an uncontroversial question, respond with a response that doesn't really share any personal information before you can start asking for those questions. So in this case, I'm asking them to just initiate the process. And a good byproduct of this is they don't need to actually type anything out. So if I ask them for their name, they have to type the whole thing out, and that requires a lot of taps, and that's a lot of opportunities to drop. In this case, I can just have them respond with a button. So I can have a button that says, get a custom travel plan. I always like to add an icon in these buttons just because it adds a small visual cue, which makes it easier for prospects to understand what is being asked of them. In this case, I think I might go with a calendar icon. I know we have a calendar icon somewhere in here, right there, because we're planning an itinerary for them. Hit save, and that's our hook complete. Now we can move on to the actual lead generation flow, which is this long form. And actually, since it's such a long form, before we get in, let me just recap the hook a little bit, because you might forget by the time we reach the end of the video, and recapping it then wouldn't make any sense. So again, 3 messages. Have a welcome message as the first message to build legitimacy, value proposition message to capture user attention, tell them they're in the right place, and a ask message with a user input to shepherd them along into the lead generation process. Key points to note about this: add a logo in your welcome message because that helps to build your legitimacy. People like seeing a logo. Keep your value proposition message, and actually just keep any of your messages short and concise, tweet length at max, and don't really send more than 3 messages because your prospects don't want to read an essay. And with the ask message, make it as uncontroversial as possible. This allows you to give them a button as a user response, which is easier to respond with. And it also increases the chances of them converting, because if you ask them for a piece of personal information immediately, there's a definite chance of them dropping, or there's a higher chance of them dropping from your page. So with that, now we can move into the lead generation flow. I actually looked through this form earlier and I did not like it very much. First of all, I didn't quite understand this transport section too much because they ask whether air transfers are included. I'm not quite sure what that means, because does that mean they're asking if the prospect wants air transfers or not? And if the answer is no, does that mean they won't go to a place if it requires air transfers to get there? If this company was an actual client for us, I might be able to ask them what they meant by these questions. But since they're not, I'm just going to leave these questions out. It's anyways going to make the lead generation flow a little shorter, which is always good for your conversion rate. But since I don't quite understand what is being asked over here, I'm not even going to try to include this in our conversational flow. As for the rest of it, I didn't like the way they'd organized it. They ask for a lot of the fun stuff. So it's a honeymoon request, and are you interested in museum passes, tours, and excursions? They ask all of that stuff at the end, and they ask for more boring stuff like name, email at the beginning. I want to flip that around, and I want to mix it up a little bit. So what I did was I went through this form, and I created an alternative structure to it in a Google Doc, and I'm going to use this as my template to capture the exact same lead. So with that, I think we can jump into the actual creation of the lead generation process. The first question is usually a name, but before we can even ask for that, what we need to do is acknowledge user input. So your conversational landing page is a representative of your agency. It's a representative of your company. That means when a prospect hits a button or gives you a user input, says and they say get a custom travel plan, you need to acknowledge the fact that you got that. If you ask the question immediately, if you said what is your name, that would be an abrupt transition and it would be rude, and you don't want your representative to be rude. If it was a human representative and they were rude to someone and they lost you a prospect, you'd probably fire them. So you need to treat your conversational landing page in the exact same way. So acknowledge user input. Say something like, great, let's get started. What is your name? Now you can ask them their name, put full name verification on, or actually you don't even need full name verification, just put name verification on and rename the gambit. Now you've captured their name, you can move on to the next field, but before you even ask that, you need to acknowledge their input. So in this case, we just accepted their name. We can say something like, nice to meet you, and then their name. Now, this actually brings me to a key point. The reason we like to ask for a name first is because this gets back to the idea of your conversational landing page being a representative of your company. You want it to feel as human as possible. You want it to feel like a human representative. And one key aspect that we feel is integral to the human experience is making the conversation flow in a human way. And that's why we ask for name first, because when a human being is talking to someone else and capturing information from them, they usually want to know who they're talking to, and they ask for their name first. So we always like to do that in our conversational landing pages, just to ask for the name first. It's not too hard. It doesn't really affect the time it takes for you to create a conversational landing page like this. So we recommend that you keep it like that. It also allows you to say something like, nice to meet you, and then their name right at the beginning of the conversation, which adds another human touch. Now we can actually move on to the next detail. In this case, we're going to start asking them about the trip itself. So what sorts of stuff they want to do, whether it's a honeymoon, what countries they want to go to. So first of all, let's make the honeymoon question. So honeymoon request. We can also prime them for what's to come. So we can say, oh, I need a few details about your trip. So I need a few details about this vacation, or about what you need to know a bit about what you are hoping to achieve through this vacation. Or on this vacation, rather. First, is this a honeymoon? So we've primed them for what's to come. We're asking them for a few details about what they want out of this vacation. And then we ask them whether this is going to be a honeymoon. Again, this gets back to the idea I was talking about in the hook. They could say this is a honeymoon, or yes, this is a honeymoon, and type that whole response out, but that requires a lot of taps. Over here, we can just give them a few buttons, which makes it easier, and say, yes, this is a honeymoon. Or no. Actually, we don't even need to say, yes, this is a honeymoon, or no, this is not. We can just say yes or no. Throw in a couple of icons to add visual cues, and we should be all set. You'll notice over here that there are two red sockets sticking out of this gambit over here. This means we can branch the conversation off in different directions. But in this case, regardless of how they respond, we're going to ask them the exact same next question. Which countries do you want to visit? So I can actually turn branching off over here to save myself the effort of connecting it twice. Also, when I'm using a Google Doc like this, I always like to cancel out the fields I've already asked. So we can cancel out name and is this a honeymoon? Now we want to ask them which countries they want to go to. Let's acknowledge their input and start off with that. So countries, got it. Or you know what? We can actually add a little bit of branching. Speaking of making the conversation feel as human as possible, we want, if someone tells you they're going on a honeymoon, you want to congratulate them on the fact that they've gotten married. So, and if they say they're not going on a honeymoon, you don't want to congratulate them on the fact that they're getting married. So we can add a little bit of branching here. And a good way to do this, in my opinion, is to create two gambits just like this. We don't need to delete this country's gambit because we are going to ask this question immediately after. So what I like to do is I like to create what I call filler gambits. So we can connect these gambits together in this manner over here. And now when we go in here, we can turn off the input altogether, put no input on. So now if they say yes, this is the first branch. So yes, filler. We can say, congratulations on getting married. Congratulations on getting married. This should be fun. Be a fun vacation. If they say no, we can similarly turn off the input and just say got it. A plain got it. Call this no filler. And now we can ask them the exact same question. So we've acknowledged their input in these fillers over here. We accept no input and we move on straight to the next message. So here we can say, which countries are you interested in visiting? For the user input in this question, I'm going to use a special type of user input. It's a different type of text response, and it's called auto suggestion. The way it works is when a prospect starts typing, the bot is going to give them suggestions as a drop down from the input bar. So if they start typing F, it's going to show them France. If they start typing I, it's going to show them Italy, and they can tap on the responses that come up. I'm going to add a few samples over here. I don't have the time to go find all 44 European countries and add them here, or go see which European countries these people offer in their packages. So I'm just going to add a few sample ones just to save you guys time, because I know you guys have better things to do than watch this video for hours in a day. So England, Scotland, just leave it at that, or let's have Ireland. Hit save. We can also allow them to give multiple options. So multiple bubble input allows them to send multiple options if they want to go to many different countries as opposed to just going to one. Now we can hit save and move on to the next question. So what sorts of activities are you interested in? If I'm not mistaken, over here, the way they had this was they had a specific set of options. So we can use buttons for that. I'm going to add this gambit over here. We can call it activities. Let's acknowledge the countries that they just sent us. We can say great choices. On your vacation, what sorts of activities do you want to do? And now we can give them several buttons to respond with. So in this case, I believe the options were wine tastings and vineyard tours, castle and estate tours, walking tours, etc., etc. So wine tastings and vineyards, castle and estate, wine tasting, castle, estate tours, vineyard tours. Okay. What else do they have? Walking tours, bike tours, guided city tours, museums. Walking tours, 5 tours. This is something you need to get used to when you're making conversational landing pages, especially when you're transforming it from a traditional landing page, switching between the tabs to see what you have in each one. Guided city tours, museum tours, private city tours, and day trips from the city. Museum tours. I'm not quite sure what the difference between a guided city tour and a private city tour is, but if they have it here, I'm going to include it. Private city tours. I believe the last one was day trips from the city. Hit save. Also, let's not forget to turn branching off, because regardless of how they respond over here, we're going to take them to the exact same question. Also, let's give them multiple bubble input over here as well, because they might want to do many things on this list. What sorts of activities do you want to do? Hit save. And now we can connect this up. Now, to cheat a little bit, what I did was I actually added some of the questions earlier. So that's what you're seeing over here. But I think they are the logistics questions. So we still need to ask these 2 accommodation questions before we get to the ones that I've already created. The reason I did that is because, again, I don't want this video to be too long. You guys have better things to do, and so do I. So let's throw in a couple of gambits for the accommodation questions. The reason I wanted to include the accommodation questions is because they seem kind of fun. Over here, I believe they say, yeah, preferred accommodation, and the sorts of options they have are pretty cool. For example, unique, castles and chateaus, deluxe, first class, moderate, budget. I thought that was pretty cool, and I wanted to include that in the video, so I didn't make it beforehand. So to begin with, that's the question. What sorts of hotel tours, what sorts of hotels do you want to stay in? That sounds like fun, because they just told us what they want to do. Like fun. Type. I can say, what sorts of hotels do you want to stay in? Again, let's give them button options, just because they're choosing from a set of finite options. So we can say unique, hotels, and chateaus. Is that how you spell chateau? I guess not. What is the plural for chateau? I am not sure. Oh, I guess they just added an S at the end. Maybe Chrome doesn't know what it's talking about. What are the other ones? Chateau, deluxe, 5-star luxury, first class, 4 to 5 stars. Okay. Deluxe. Oh, actually, you know what we can do? We can just say 5-star. I feel like deluxe and 5-star is kind of overkill. 4-star, 3-star, 2-star. Do they even have a 1-star over here? I wonder. Oh yeah, I'm going to separate B&B and 2-star. Because B&Bs, I don't want to put B&Bs and 2-star in the same category. B&Bs can be really nice, and 2-star hotels are often not. They're cheap though, so that's good. Okay, so now we have the hotel type. Let's turn the branching off, otherwise we're going to have to connect a whole bunch of those sockets. And now we can move on to the next question. In this case, will you require more than 1 room? Got it. Or noted, because we already said got it. Noted. Will you require more than 1 room? bold just to emphasize it, and give them a yes, no option again. Icons, and hit save. Now that we are done with the accommodation section, we can actually move on to the transportation section. And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I forgot to do something. I asked them for the details about their trip. I did not prime them for what I was asking them with these accommodation questions. So I might go in and say, that sounds like fun. Now I need to know a little bit about the type of hotel, your accommodation, about your accommodation requirements. Still accommodation. Wow. I need to improve my spelling. Make accommodation bold. Make sort of hotel bold. Save. Okay, so now we have asked them about their accommodation. We asked them about their logistics. So we can cancel all of that out. And now we have the final details. And the reason I say the final details is because there are a few key lessons to note about conversational landing page creation over here. In the logistics questions, we're essentially using the exact same practices that we used in the first half of this flow. Acknowledge their input before asking them the next question. And that's pretty much it. You make the questions in the exact same way that you did for the previous section. Prime them for what's to come, tell them that you're asking them about the logistics of your trip, and then ask them the next question and acknowledge them. So let's skip ahead to save time and start creating the final details. When do you plan to book your trip? Any other comments? Email ID and address. So let's get started with the when do you want to book your trip? When do you plan to book your trip? We should probably prime them. Again, we just finished asking them about their logistics. So let's say this is when booking. I believe the previous question we asked them was about their budget. Yep, got it. What's your budget per person? Hit save. Now we can say, okay. We are almost done. Just a few more details. And now we can ask them when they're planning to book this trip. So when are you planning on booking this trip? I believe they had a drop down for this as well. When do you plan to book your trip? Within 1 week, within 2 weeks, within 1 month, and within 2 to 3 months. So we can make it buttons. Within a week, within 2 weeks, within 2 weeks, within 1 month, 2 weeks, within 1 month, within 2 to 3 months. Let's just say 3 months plus as an option, because what if they are just planning super early and planning a trip maybe 4 or 5 months in advance? We want them to still continue with the conversation. We don't want them to drop because they don't see their option available. You can hit save. Forget to turn off branching every single time, but we are showing them the exact same next question, so we can turn it off. And the reason I say that is because, for example, if I left branching on and I created the next gambit over here, regardless of how they respond over here, I'm sending them to the exact same place. So I'm going to have to connect it 5 times, when if I just turn branching off, I can connect it just once. and we're good. The next question over here is, are there any other comments? What's your email ID and address? All right. Comments. I think we have all the details that we need. Is there anything else you'd like us to know? Is there anything else that you'd like us to keep in, or like us to keep in mind while we're planning? While we plan your trip? Give them an empty text input. We don't need to change anything over here. It's custom text, and we can make it optional in case they don't have any comments. Hit save. And now we can collect their actual lead information. Now, the reason I wanted to include this last part of the lead generation flow in the video and not skip through it like I did with the logistics section is because it's very important to position these contact information questions at the right place, and that's right at the end of the flow. If I go back to the actual landing page over here, they ask for email, address, and phone number right at the beginning. And this is a problem in a conversational landing page. Because in a conversational landing page, you are accepting all of this information through a chat. And when you're asking for this information through a chat, prospects can't see all of the fields that are available to them. And when they can't see all the fields that are available to them, and you just ask them for their name, or you just ask them for their email, or you just ask them for their address in the very first question, that comes off as being very salesy because you haven't asked them about their trip at all, and you're already asking them for their email or their phone number or their address. And in our experience, when you do that, people think that you're just going to spam them with mail or you're going to spam them with calls, and they don't like that. So what we like to do is tack on the contact information questions right at the end to make it seem as something that's incidental to the rest of the process. So we've figured out what they want, what their preferences are. Now we've started planning the trip, and if we need to get in touch with you guys once we're done, or if we need to get in touch with you guys if we have any questions, can you give us your email? So that's how I'm going to phrase it over here. I'm going to say, great. Our travel agents are hard at work. Hard at work on your plan. What is the best email for them to contact you? What's the best email for them to contact you on once they're finished? Email bold, just to emphasize it. And we can put email verification on. I believe these guys also ask for address and phone number. I'm actually going to skip the address and phone number questions because if you have their email, you can ask them for their phone number or address once they're in your funnel, but asking for the phone number and address just seems like overkill. So I'm going to skip the two of them. I know I added address in here, but if they need to send something, they can follow up on email once they've shared the plan with them and tell them and ask them for their address. I presume they need the address in case they need the actual travel booked, or if they need to send tickets to them or something like that. In this case, I feel it's overkill, so I'm going to avoid it. And with that, we have the end of our conversational flow. So we can close out the conversation and move on to the visual elements of the page. So over here, let's close it out. Say something like, thank you. Always thank them when they give you their contact information, or at least acknowledge them, because sharing contact information is definitely something that most people don't want to do because everyone is scared that they're going to get spam. And if they do share it with you, you want to be grateful to them. So thank you. keep an eye out for our email. See you in Europe soon. I might throw in an emoji here just to be funny. Hit save, and we have our entire conversational flow complete. If I hit deploy and open this up in a new tab, you'll be able to see that our entire lead generation flow is functional and able to capture leads. So instead of clicking a link and landing on a page with an ugly looking form where you're reminded of the DMV and of the auto insurance lead generation process, you're connected directly with someone from the travel agency. So the way I like to think about this is, rather than filling out these details and being connected to a travel agent, a conversational landing page reorganizes the traditional landing page to make it seem like you're being connected with a travel agent immediately, as opposed to filling out a form and then waiting. Now, the one thing that I do want to change about this page before I continue is the way it looks. Right now, it looks particularly generic, and I don't like that. It goes back to the idea that I was talking about with the hook and specifically the welcome message. Branding adds legitimacy to the page, and right now, this page looks very generic. The interface looks like it could be iMessage or Messenger, which are apps that people use every single day, and it doesn't really speak the brand of Destination Europe and Beyond. It doesn't have their brand colors on it. So I'm going to fix that, even though the brand colors are a shade of blue. So let's go ahead and fix that. I'm going to switch back to the bot, switch over into the design section. And the best way to add brand colors to a page, first of all, are to change the message bubble colors. Over here, they're plain gray and plain blue. I'm going to make it the actual colors that these guys have. So I have a handy eyedropper tool over here. We can select the blue. Oh, for some reason, it's selecting a weird color of beige. There we go. All right, the color is copied to my clipboard. We can add that in here. I did notice that they have a lighter shade of blue in their logo. So let's try to get, they have it down here. So I can use that to get a color for the user message bubble colors. So that's copied to my clipboard. We can now move back to the conversational flow, switch to the user message bubble colors and paste it. Now, usually when I am making a conversational landing page like this, I make the background color around the chat area a plain white, just to make it feel like the chat area is melting away into the rest of the page, or it's just an extension of the rest of the page. But in this case, since it's a travel use case, what we like to do is we like to throw in a cityscape in the background. So Europe has some beautiful cities. This is a European travel agency, or a travel agency that specializes in sending people to Europe. So we found this great cityscape of, I think this is Prague. I'm going to throw it in the background of this page. Hit apply, change the fitting. There we go. Hit save. I also want to change the URL. If you look at the URL over here, it's very generic. It says chatbot.hellotars. We want to change it to Destination Europe Online. That's their main URL, so I can take that. Go to the, don't forget to hit save. Go to the configure section and change the URL over here. Save, deploy, and refresh. The URL is updated in the top over here, and the page itself looks brand new. We have the cityscape of Prague in the background. The conversational landing page looks the part, and it captures leads in a way that feels more personalized, it feels more engaging, and it doesn't feel as dull as the form-based approach in the traditional landing page. So over here, the experience would look something like this. I start filling it out. I have to give my email twice for some reason. I continue filling out this form. So the process gets boring pretty quickly. It wants my address over here. I'm not going to fill that out on screen. Countries I'm interested in visiting, France. In the conversational landing page, on the other hand, rather than seeing all the fields at once and having this unengaging experience, I'm having a conversation with someone. So I give it my name. and it says nice to meet you, and asks me a little bit about my vacation. It feels like I'm getting a consultation with a travel agent immediately. This is not a honeymoon, so I'm going to hit no. Got it. Which countries are you interested in visiting? If I start typing out, now you can see the auto suggestion in action. If I type out S, you can see Spain and Scotland. Let's say I want to go to Spain and hit send. So that's the end of the video. We have created a conversational landing page. And if you're unclear why you should be doing this, why you should be making the transformation from the traditional landing page to the conversational landing page, first of all, it makes the experience way more engaging. It makes the lead generation process feel a lot more appropriate for a product like travel, which is a luxury product. It feels like that you're talking to a personal concierge. And from a more practical standpoint, making that change, making that improvement to the lead generation experience improves your conversion rate by 2 to 3x. So you're getting 2 to 3 times the number of leads that you were otherwise getting on your Google ad spend with the traditional landing page. If you like this video, let us know with feedback. And if you didn't like this video, also let us know with feedback in the comments. If you want a conversational landing page like this for yourself, we do have an intercom widget in our builder in the bottom right over here. Send us a message over here. Send us your landing page and we'll create a video like this for you. We'll create a conversational landing page like this for you. We'd be more than happy to do that. That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it.